want to extend a special thank you to today's presenter, Kent Yu. I'm going to stop sharing and read this. Sorry, I have to get out of here first. All right. Kent has led or contributed to community resilience planning projects at national, state, and local levels. As the chair of Oregon Seismic Safety Policy Advisory Commission from 2011 to 2013, he led the effort to develop the Oregon Resilience Plan to better prepare Oregon for the next Cascadia earthquake and/or tsunami. He also led a team to develop a resilience plan for the Beaverton School District and assisted the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, to develop the Community Resilience Planning Guide for buildings and infrastructure systems. He serves on the Executive Committee and the Disaster Response and Recovery Committee of ASCE Infrastructure Resilience Division and is a member of the ASCE 7 Subcommittee on Tsunami Loads and Effects, which is responsible for developing a national standard for tsunami design of buildings and other structures. He served on the NIST FEMA panel to develop options for post-earthquake reoccupancy and functional recovery time. So thank you, Kent, for showing up and doing this presentation, and I'll hand it off to you.
Great, thank you. Let me share with you my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So so my talk is functional recovery of built environment for achieving community resilience. I'd like to use this opportunity to talk about background and my Oregon experience. I want to thank AIA Oregon giving me this opportunity to share my experience with you all. To start, I'd like to thank a few people who helped me over the years. I was first exposed to a resilience concept back in 2008 when Chris Poland, the former CEO of Degenkolb, when he and I traveled to China, look at the Sichuan earthquake in 2008. And then afterwards, in 2011, 2012, I worked very closely with Jay Wilson to develop Oregon Resilience Plan. This was you can see Jay and I was standing at the Tokyo train station before we head out to Tohoku, look at earthquake and tsunami damage. And then a few years later, I got involved in the Beaverton School District planning, working very closely with Dick Steinberge of Beaverton School District. Also, during that time, I had in terms of interaction with the state, Yumei Wang, and also the state architect, Alice Weevil. I also want to mention that Yumei has been very instrumental for my entire career. She got me into a lifeline back in 2004. And I was attending a seminar in PSU, and she asked me to join the ASCE Lifeline Council on Earthquake Engineering. And also, I want to also acknowledge Jay Raskin. He is a different kind of architect, I would say. He got me into tsunami, and also, in my presentation, I also share a few projects we worked together as well. So, the current building seismic design, you tend to focus on the life safety, not so much on recovery. Our current code rely on ductile performance and to dissipate earthquake energy. In the end, we're going to have structural damage. And there is when we look at the seismic design, we don't think too much about recovery. We just focus on the what's going to happen to the occupants in general. So let's quickly talk about the damaged states if we follow our building code design, right? So, in our building code, when we design, we have the risk category 2. That's when we typically design office building, and category number 4 essentially is we are dealing with hospital, fire station, police station, EOCs, emergency operations center, right? And then there's also category 3, when we design schools, power generation stations, water, wastewater treatment facilities. So those are 3. So what does that mean? Well, when you design for category 2, what you're getting essentially is after design earthquake, you're going to get a life safety performance. Means that building is going to experience significant damage. Building may experience permanent drift. Building will remain stable and has a reserve capacity so that occupants can get out of the building safely, but building may not be economically repairable. That's called a life safety performance. And then there's operational performance at the very top. From the structural perspective, the performance level essentially is called immediate occupancy. This building essentially remains most of its pre-earthquake strength and stiffness, and you can remain safe to occupy the building. Any repair will be relatively minor. From the immediate occupancy, elevate to the operational level, the main difference is on the non-structural side of things. You want to make sure that the backup utility service remains functional. You want to make sure that the equipment, the critical equipment, mechanical, electrical equipment, they are seismic certified, means that they are going to survive earthquake shaking. So those are the main difference. Now, in between life safety and immediate occupancy, there's a bit of point called a damage control. This damage state is reserved for category 3 structures, schools, power generation stations, whatnot. Okay. So those are the design level earthquake. And when you design our typical office building, when we have the called MCE, maximum considered earthquake happens, the performance level damage state we're achieving is something looks like this called a collapse prevention. Building remains standing, but barely. So the aftershock could knock down the building. So that's the performance level. So if we put this on this chart, on this left-hand side, we have different earthquake levels, frequent, design level, MCE, 2% 50 years, 10% 50 years, whatnot. And then we have on the horizontal top, we have performance levels. So if you design risk category 2, so at the 10% in 50-year earthquake, you are achieving life safety. When you have MC level earthquake, you are achieving collapse prevention. If you design risk category 4, you're going to meet the operation structurally is immediate occupancy, and when the MC level earthquake, you achieve life safety. That's the performance level we're talking about. So I'm going to use this kind of example here to kind of talk through real quick. So this is a medical campus up on the hill in Oregon. I know most of you probably know where they are. So we have a hospital, building 100. It's an acute care hospital, right? And in front of it there's a parking garage. And this parking garage essentially is when the patients come in, visitors come in, they will park in the parking garage. But the roof of the parking garage actually served the patient drop-off. Well, if you using a life safety consideration, you would design the parking garage as life safety performance because that's risk category 2. That's what you want to do. But if you think about the building performance of this garage in the context of post-earthquake scenario, you want to continue to bring patients, drop it off to the hospital. So you're going to park your vehicle on top of the garage. Well, you want to actually, if you think from that perspective, you want to design your parking garage to achieve immediate occupancy performance level. The good thing is this, the building owner recognized this, and they are in the process of retrofitting this parking garage right now. So I want to show you the difference between the traditional life safety-based design versus the recovery-based design. So this is a big shift for us. So shifting from the life safety to resilience, looking back, I would say the main turning point is in 2006 San Francisco, the 100-year anniversary of San Francisco 1906 earthquake. The Chris Poland of Degenkolb, he's the CEO at the time. He was the chairman for the conference. He was working with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, And during that conference, they are talking about what if we have San Francisco 1906 happen again? How long will it take San Francisco to recover? So they started looking at this called a Resilient City Initiative. And this is where I learned a resilient concept from Chris Poland. Of course, many others in our state, UMA, Jay, and a few others, and Ted Wolf, and many others also were exposed to the resilient city concepts in San Francisco. And the UMA and Jay and Ted Wolf in 2011, right before Tohoku earthquake, a year after Haiti earthquake, they wrote this article in Oregonian, and they demonstrated strong leadership to get our state forward, thinking about resilience. How can we make our state resilient? So shortly after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, our state passed the House Resolution 3. For the state of Oregon, this is a turning point, shifting our state from life safety-based design towards recovery or resilience-based design. And in House Bill 3, essentially Resolution 3, our state direct the Seismic Safety Commission to keep protect life and also keep commerce flowing. Means that we want to use life safety and also economic protection to drive our state recovery, drive our state resilience plan. So you have seen this diagram already from Jay Raskin's presentation a few weeks ago. The key point is that resilience is not about the damaged state right after the event. This one has another dimension, means that the time dimension, the recovery dimension right after earthquake. How long can we take us to recover, to restore, bring our society back to the normal state? We know what we need to do. Japan, Chile is a good example. They have set standards for us. So that's the direction we want to move to. So, this is the Jay mentioned about in his presentation about Oregon Resilience Plan, and we're using the social, essentially the economic needs and the coastal community needs to drive the performance and the recovery of all of our built environment, buildings and infrastructure systems across our state. We discovered a huge resilience gap for our buildings and infrastructure systems. The reason I'm showing this slide is because I'm going to use this a little later, especially talking about the schools and the emergency shelters. The target for emergency shelters is 72 hours. Right now, it's going to take us 18 months to recover. With K to K to 12 schools, essentially our resilience target is 30 days, but it's going to take us 18 months to get there. So after we published Oregon Resilience Plan in 2013, in 2014, the NIST noticed the work going on the West Coast, San Francisco, Oregon, and Washington, and then they wanted to also develop the community resilience plan guide across our nation for multi-hazard. The Jay Wilson and I were involved in this work, and later on, Jay Raskin was leading the effort to develop this community resilience panel for NIST at the time. So the work done by NIST was excellent. I think because you are all architects, I'm sure you love this. They're talking about the community. When we build our buildings and the infrastructure system, we build these things for our people, and we need to meet our people's needs. So, what are the best way to define the needs for our people? I'm going to use a Maslow hierarchy of needs to talk about the community member needs. So the most fundamental needs is called survival, right? We're talking about water, wastewater, the shelter, clothing, air, etc. Once we meet this most fundamental needs, we'll move to the next level. It's essentially safety and security. We're talking about personal and financial safety, security, economic, financial security, and health, well-being, and all of those things. Once we, next level up is, a sense of belonging and acceptance by your community. The last one is the highest level. Essentially, is we all have talents and certain gifts. And so we want to achieve our full potential and grow and make impact for our community, just like all of you, architects design beautiful structures for our community. So if we look at our society as a whole, our social, our community, look at the social structure, we have 8 the social institutions, family, just our homes, healthcare, education, economy, media, religious, government, community services. All those things, we are supported by buildings and infrastructure systems, water, wastewater, communication, transportation, energy. Just like today's event, without communication, without energy, we cannot have this discussion. We are all sitting, each of our offices, right? So the building is also, working seamlessly behind the scene in a normal situation. But when earthquake happens, it's going to have damage on those things, the buildings and also infrastructure systems. How can we recover? Well, the big picture idea essentially is this: at what time we need to provide what to our people so that their needs are met. So the National Disaster Recovery Framework actually provides us a really a nice stage to talk about this. So after the event, we are looking at immediately after the event, we need to take care of our survival needs, right? And in the short term, and we need to take care of the survival and the safety and security. And then moving on to the intermediate phase, we are talking about weeks to months. That's going to take care of our sense of belonging and growth and potential type of needs. And eventually, after the long-term recovery in the months and years, we're going to get our society back to normal. So at a different stage, what do we need? Well, thinking about the immediate after the event and the short term, and we need to conduct a search and rescue. We need to stabilize those events, make sure that the cascading effects won't get out of hand. We need to start clear routes, setting the stage for emergency response, right, and recovery. So what do we need for building clusters? Well, we need critical facilities, EOC, police station, fire station, hospitals, etc. Also, we need emergency housing, take care of displaced community members. To keep these buildings functional, we need the related infrastructure system to support their functionality. As we move into the intermediate phase, that's the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Essentially, for that time, we need to start thinking about restore the neighborhoods, meet our social needs. We need to think about our homes, healthcare, medical offices, Main Street businesses, getting our kids to school so everyone can go back to work, and the churches and all of those things. And then move on to the long term. Essentially, we'll take a commercial and industrial business and associated infrastructure systems. So give you an example, if you follow the matrix from the NIST Resilience Planning Guide, you'll have those critical facilities, emergency housing, those that take care of the short-term needs, and they'll have housing and neighborhoods. That's to take care of the needs during the intermediate phase, and the community recovery. This is more or less we're talking about in the long-term phase. So in the short-term phase, we need to have all these critical facilities ready to provide services, and then for the housing, typically we're talking about 2 to 4 weeks or so in our neighborhoods, weeks to months, to take care of our social needs. But the thing is, our building life safety design standards does not address, in an explicit format to support the community resilience, which defines those recovery goals for our, our building clusters. So in 2018, the Congress passed the NEHRP, National Earthquake Hazard Reduction Program. In 2018, in the law, the Congress heightened the focus on community resilience and through the functional recovery of built environment, buildings and infrastructure systems. So for the first time at a national level, we are starting shifting our focus now from the life safety towards recovery. The thinking about traditionally we focus on the life safety. Now we're shifting the functional recovery. Functional recovery doesn't mean, it's the, I'll explain a little bit what does that mean. So, after the earthquake, we have, first thing we need to do, essentially, we want to stabilize our building so that we can reoccupy the building. And then afterwards, we are going inside the building to repair our structure to the extent that we can do most of the tasks, most of the pre-earthquake tasks within that building. We call it the functional recovery. Functional recovery is not full functionality. I want to make sure we all are on the same page on this. So this is essentially on the left, on the left-hand side, we talk about the recovery process stages. So after the event, building will be inspected. If we found that the engineer said that no repairs required, then essentially building is ready to go. So they are looking to external dependencies. Where's our power? Where's the water? Where's our wastewater services? Where's our communications, right? But if you do have a repair your building, so then you cannot start immediately right afterwards. Well, you need to mobilize your design team to design, right? And engage you guys, and also secure the financing, retain contractors, and also start to order those long lead items. Once all these things in place, then you can start to implement repair. Those are called impeding factors. So once we repair, then we can achieve different recovery states, whether it's functional recovery or full functionality. So functional recovery, essentially, according to this FEMA report, is that the post-event performance state in which a building is maintained or restored to support the basic intended functions associated with the pre-event use occupancy of the building. Essentially, is that ready to support most of the pre-event use in addition to reoccupancy. So you can see that for the functional recovery, it's not a full functionality. We still have a board up of some windows. We may have a limited use of our elevators. We may have to use, in certain location, we may have to use fire watch instead of having a fully functional, sprinkler system, etc. So that one of the recommendations from the FEMA NIST functional report is that we need to develop a framework for post-earthquake recovery-based objectives. So the one of the tables conceptual category developed in the report essentially is that we're going to look at our buildings based on when we need them, whether hours after the event, days to weeks after the event, weeks and months after the event, based on how soon we need those buildings. We can look at the different functionality, functional recovery category A, B, C, D, right? And then corresponding to the functional recovery time, we know which cluster of buildings we need. For example, within hours, we need the emergency and first responder facilities, designated shelters, emergency operation centers, etc. And plus the lifeline structure supporting those facilities. So, so now when we are dealing with the functional, we are talking about times, repair times. So how do we do that? Well, there's a tool, FEMA funded Applied Technology Council over the past 20 years or so. They're developing this called FEMA P58 tool. It's initially published 7 volumes. Essentially, this is called the next generation of performance-based seismic assessment tool for buildings. The consequence of the earthquake shaking we're looking at essentially is safety, repair cost, replacement cost, reoccupancy, right, and functional and full recovery in terms of repair time and environmental impact. Initial study before the Congress report came out, they were only look at full functionality recovery, and after the 2021 report came out, now they are currently working on the 8th volume, essentially talking about functional recovery, the consequence as well. So you can go online to download all these documents. They are a wonderful thing you can use because the matrix we're using is commonly understood. So how do we do that? So, if you're really interested in how engineers do it, is that, you design a building, we put a building model, and then we pump the ground motion to the base of the structure. We shake it. We document how much movement we have at each level. We look at what's the velocity, what's the acceleration at each floor level. Then we look at what does that mean for at each component level. Look at the fragility functions, how much damage they're going to experience. Based on each component damage state, we can look at how much time will take us to repair them, how much it will cost that we tallying them up. And that will get us the repair time, repair cost, etc. So all of the technology tool will be wrapped into the functional recovery design process. In the United States, when we develop seismic design standards, the source actually come out of NIHRP. NIHRP, essentially the National Earthquake Hazard Reduction Program, was passed by Congress in 1977. So over the past 40 plus some years, the FEMA has been working closely with Seismic Safety Council of National Institute of Building Sciences to develop so-called NIHRP recommended seismic provision for new buildings and other structures. Over the past 40 years, the called Provisions Updated Committee under the BSSC has already developed 10 editions. Now they are currently working on the 11th edition. Once the seismic provision is developed, will feed into the ASC 7 seismic subcommittee. Subcommittee will turn into the national standards and being referenced by the International Building Code. So the timeline is this: for the 2026 NIHRP seismic provision, the committee was formed in 2021. Because of the report, the FEMA NIST functional recovery report, FEMA asked the BSSC to form a task committee to address the functional recovery provisions development. So there's a 5 technical subcommittee working on that. And currently, we're in 2024 right now. The goal is that by the end of the 2025, we're going to wrap this up. In 2026, we're going to publish the NIHRP provision, and then hopefully, some of the provision document will get it incorporated into next edition of ASC 7, and eventually will be referenced by International Building Code in 2030. So that's the kind of timeline. So, this is kind of at the national level what we are doing, supporting community resilience to through functional recovery of buildings and infrastructure systems. I want to talk about some of the experience. I was involved in the state of Oregon. The first project was Beaverton School District. I'm going to check my time real quick. So in 2014, the Beaverton School District passed the biggest bond program in our state. They passed somewhere around $800 million to build 7 new schools. And in 2014, I was giving a presentation for engineering society in Oregon, and Dick Steinberg, the executive director for the facilities, was in the audience. He was shocked to learn about our school's recovery time will be as long as 18 months, and our resilience target is 30 days. And so we decided to have a meeting afterwards, say how can we integrate some of the resilience recommendation from Oregon Resilience Plan into their bond program. So their vision, after a discussion with Dick and his, leadership team, they are hoping that the school will function as emergency shelter within 72 hours, and they want to resume education within 30 days. Because they want to do this type of resilience features in the construction after the bond program was already passed. So there's no extra money available to incorporate those all the resilience features we want to incorporate. So one of the goals, essentially, we want to be realistic, and also we want to be flexible. So he wanted us to look at the 2 schools, the Cooper Mountain High School and the middle school in Timberland development. So then, as a part of this work, he said, I would like to know how much would it cost for each resilience feature so that we can share that information with other sister school districts. So after that meeting, I talked with Chris Poland, talked with Jay Raskin. We were working together. We had a number of meetings. So at planning meetings, we decided to have a workshop. Because in order to turn the school into emergency shelter, we need to engage the local emergency response team, Red Cross, emergency management at a county level, and also TVFR and the city of Beaverton management as well. And to make the building usable, we need electricity, we need to have water, wastewater. How do we do all of that? And also we want to make sure that the Beaverton School District, the leadership is on board, project management team are on board, design team are on board. And also we want to also share that what we're doing with the state, Oregon Emergency Management. We're hoping we can get some funding from them so that we can fill some of the funding gaps over there. But anyway, that we didn't get any money from the state. No complaints. We understand that. But we published the cost. We track all those resilience features. Overall, is 1% of the construction cost for high school. This is the report we published back in 2015. For middle school, it's a little higher, 1.5%. So Beaverton School District implement all those resilience features in their high school and the middle school. You have heard a lot about it over the years from Tech, probably. Next one I want to talk about is Oregon Resilience Buildings. This is the project I worked with Yume Wang and state architect Alice Weevil. So after Beaverton School District, the work, the state government, DAS, they are very interested in what we're doing with Beaverton School District. During that time, our state government is very proactive. They want to also assess the anticipated recovery time for our state office buildings, our government buildings. As you know that after the event, we need to maintain the continuity of government for our state. It is very, very critical. That needs to be up and running, after a few hours. So in 2008, the state did a master planning for yellow lot and red lot right across the state capitol, in the state capitol mall. If you go to state capitol for meetings, oftentimes that's where you park your vehicles. So in 2008, they want to put an office building here with underground parking garage. For the red lot, they want to put a surface parking over there. That was the idea. So then in 2016, so the DAS approached us, mostly as Alice Weevil, state architect, and Yume Wang was the Ogami. So we were having a meeting talking about what is their vision for their buildings. The vision essentially is operational within hours after earthquake, operational after 500 flood. Because we know that the Salem infrastructure system is up to snuff. So we need to make sure the building can be operational off-grid 24/7. And then also they want to make sure we achieve the USRC Resilience Council Platinum rating. And also we need a sustainable rating for gold minimum. Lastly, is the big one is being cost effective. Essentially, we want to make sure that you don't cost too much money. So this is what we did. We had a planning discussion with DAS, with the managers, project managers, and also we retained a team, a mechanical engineer plus a contractor to tally up the cost, for all those resilience features we're going to do. Eventually we published our report in 2016. Let me tell you what we did. So we mentioned about in the Salem area, if we look at our electricity, look at the natural gas, look at the water, wastewater systems, it's going to take us a long time to recover. So the state said we need to make sure the building usable immediately afterwards. So we decided we want to make sure that the building become self-sufficient. So for the red lot building, for the Oregon Resilience Building 1, to achieve that performance level, we decided to use base isolation, and also to support the building performance level, we want to do a really good job to brace all the non-structural components in our building, and to bring the water to our facility. Well, in a normal mode, we're going to rely on the city water, but in the disaster mode, we have a well actually underneath the red lot. So we're going to use the well, pump the water to our building here. We can treat it in our building, or we can treat the water in the red lot building, in the parking garage over there. And also can hook up, having exterior hookup to bring the water into our building through a water truck. So we have a number of ideas to make sure we have a triple redundancy. And then for the wastewater, we want to treat the wastewater on site. And because we have base isolation, we have lots of space, especially in the basement area. So with entertaining the idea essentially in using wastewater storage tank, buried underneath our building, maybe outside our building. But that was the idea, and we want to use passive design to make sure it's energy efficient. It's not only sustainable during normal time, but also it doesn't require a whole lot of energy consumption during the disaster mode. For Oregon Building 2, essentially is a parking garage. So in order to, so then what we did was for the Oregon Resilience Building 1, we take underground parking, put on top of the Oregon Resilience Building 2. On top of that, we made the parking garage a little taller. And we make sure the building is going to perform really well. And also we want to use the building for multiple functions. We have on-site well over there. We want to make sure that if needed, we can treat the water over there too. But also we want to make sure we have a sufficient power supply for our the Oregon Resilience Building 1. We on top of both buildings, we want to put solar panels and also the battery storage. But in Oregon, we have a few days that we don't have sun, so we decided to also have emergency generator on site to cover some of those days. So with those things, essentially is that we look at the cost, the cost difference between before and after. We're looking at somewhere around under 1% in that range. So we definitely meet all the requirements posed to us by DAS. In 2018, the state wanted to move forward with this because the budget cut and this project was paused. But during that time, Alan Scott and a few others were helping DAS move the project forward because the project was paused. And then Alan Scott was approached by the Oregon Treasury Resilience Building, the owner. Essentially, he was able to fold a lot of the resilience feature into the Oregon Treasury Resilience Building. So all of our hard work didn't get wasted. So the Penske Construction was a general contractor. So then they knew our history with the Oregon Resilience Building. They hired us to assist them during construction. So what we did was we helped them. They want to make sure that they retrofit when they build a building, they get all the resilience feature right. So what we did was we reviewed all the drawings. They have structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical drawings, and also identify all the key features, resilience features embedded in those drawings. And we did a presentation to their Penske team. Penske Construction have many trades, subcontractors. Talk to them, bring them on board, explain to them why this building is important, the functionality of this building, what are the design details will support the functionality of this building. And when you do the actual construction, you'll need to pay close attention to those details. So we explain this to them so they have really good understanding. And then they also ask us to provide additional structural, non-structural observation during construction process to identify if anything that was missed by their contractor. So the whole process was was really good, and that was very unique experience for me actually. Previously, all the resilience planning work was done at the beginning of the project. This one's at the tail end of the project. So when I put together this presentation, I thought about, what would be my message to you? You guys are architects, and you frequently interface with building owners, right? And with the developers, and oftentimes when an owner decided to build a building or build a group of buildings, they often do master planning. And the lessons we learned from Beaverton School District, is that it would be nice to have some of the resilience feature budgeted already during the master planning process. So I really would like to encourage you, start early when you have a conversation with the owners, and thinking about the socioeconomic needs during the recovery phase, and think about what do you want to use the building, so that you can make sure you have the budget, overall before the bond program, is developed. And the other piece is that I also want to tell you is that dealing with resilience, address the functional recovery of buildings is not as hard as you think. If I can do it, you can do it too. I want really encourage you to become be a convener, be a community leader. Essentially is that when we deal with resilience, issues, for example, Beaverton School District, we need to bring different parties together. Our society oftentimes operates in different silos. For example, emergency management, they oftentimes operate in their own silo. They don't get involved in the community planning, etc. But they are expected to pick up all the pieces after disaster happens. What if we bring them together, at the beginning of the project, so that we have a unified vision as we move forward? So our last thing essentially is, once you understand the socioeconomic needs, you need to advocate those needs and implement them in your projects, because you are very crucial in terms of building our community, building all those buildings out there. So I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. I share with you, my understanding what's going on at the state level and national level, and I share with you some of my experience with you. With that, I'm going to open up for questions.
So if anyone has questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions, or put your questions in the chat box. And Kent, do you have the chat box open on your screen?
I think so, but it's I don't see anything yet. Yeah.
This is Jay. I have a question. In the process that you've been working on with the functional recovery, I assume that this is going on a code track, so that at sometime in the future this might be integrated in the building codes?
That would be the long-term goal. That's correct. So for the 2026 NIST seismic provision, as you know, this work is still work in progress. I did not share any particular detail with the provision because it's still work in progress. I do not confuse people about what we're doing. So I really encourage you to follow, what we're doing. Go to the BSS website to see what's going on. So potentially the right now it's an independent chapter in NIST seismic provision document. It could end up in the part 1, or could it end up in part 3, becomes some sort of appendix. It could maybe a portion could end up in ASC 7-28. So we don't know yet. So it's still work in progress. But the long-term goal is that yes, we will have functional recovery as part of our international building code. Does that answer your question, Jay?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to mention about NIST functional recovery report. If you read the chapter 1, some of the work we did in Oregon was referenced in that document. They mentioned about our Oregon Resilience Plan. They mentioned about the pioneering work done by Beaverton School District. So it's excellent. So there's a question about, for those of us working in housing, is there any sort of reference manual to include functional recovery for wood frame housing? Right now, we do not have off-the-shelf reference manual for you to use yet. But there's lots of engineers in Oregon that are involved in the development of functional recovery provisions. If you are really interested, I'm happy to get you connected with them. Yes, we don't have off-the-shelf reference manual yet. We're still, the functional recovery is still a work in progress. But eventually, we will have that for you ready. While waiting for other questions, I also want to mention about is that as you see when we do LEED certification, sustainability, typically there's a sort of a sustainability leader consultant, essentially coordinating all those activities across different disciplines. For the disaster resilience, we foresee there's similar role for this too. We're already doing it in the state of Oregon. When Willamette Water Supply Program, it's $1.7 billion water system on the west side. They want to build state-of-the-art, a very resilient water system to support economy in Washington County, because all the economic activities in Washington County, they need the water. Intel, Solar World, Genentech, you name it, right? They all need the water. So right from the get-go, so they want to incorporate resilience into their construction and design. So for any component, so they divided this whole project, whole system into many components. Each component will have a seismic lead. Essentially, the seismic lead will consolidate the resilience features across all disciplines. So it is a very nice thing to have. And if you look at the functional recovery provision right now, there is something called a functional recovery coordinator. They are working on the specification on the roles and responsibility right now. So, but I'm want to share that with you is that Oregon, we are doing on many fronts, we're experimenting things so that we can provide good information feed into those code process. Are there recommendations for residential design that would move the building from life safety to high level resiliency? Yes, they are. I think a lot of residential homes actually some of the for some of the high-rise tall residential buildings, we need to thinking about how the energy is being dissipated in our building. So we need to have energy dissipation in there so that we can dissipate any instead of relying on nails and all of that dissipate energy. In UC San Diego, they just tested 10-story wood frame building. So they have all kinds of the energy dissipation devices in the structure. So yes, they are. Base isolation can be a major budget impediment to build a functional recovery with owners. Any guidance on navigating conversation with owner? One of the things is this, the base isolation, yes, there's a front cost definitely. But the thing is, my recommendation is that when you talk to the owner, you look at the life cycle cost, you look at the cost could incurred during the recovery phase. So the other piece is that many of us, Jay Raskin, Jay Wilson, you May, and many others, we've been talking about for a while. Essentially, how can we encourage our government, our private sector owners, to especially on the public sector, how can we provide incentives so that the resilience is become a marketing tool and becomes. If you look at the Christchurch, right? Right now, when they sell these new buildings, they said our buildings is base isolated. Our buildings has dampers meet the latest, greatest seismic design standards. So they are using these things to convince people to buy their facilities, buy their buildings. I hope that we're going to do the same thing in Oregon too. Are there resilience measures in place for utilities in the street, or is resilience up to individual building? So there are two things on the utilities. That's really good questions. When we are talking about functional recovery buildings, we are looking the building within our footprint. We don't necessarily go beyond looking at but our buildings is within the community, this big context, right? So in order for our building to become functional, oftentimes we rely on power, water, wastewater. If you want to do the things you were doing before the earthquake. So it is important to communicate with encourage the utilities to harden their facilities, right? That's one thing you can do. You pay the bills. You can encourage them to do that. The other thing is always good to do have some preparedness at home. I think emergency response, in my mind, is a shared responsibility. We should not push the responsibility to other people. We also should take our own share. So, for example, in our office, we have water. We have 50-gallon of water stored in our office to address some of the utility, shut off, for example. And we are planning to buy, the batteries down the road. We still haven't bought any batteries yet, but we are planning to buy some for ourselves too. So it's the tomorrow, next Friday, actually, we can have a open discussion about the utilities lifelines. I think that that would be a good time to have further discussion on this. But that's a very good question. So the functional resiliency is related to MEP systems, ventilations, energy backup, water storage. That's correct. Yes. So it really depends on what is the basic intended function of the building. So when we are looking at the basic intended function of a building, we're talking about the structural, non-structural, right? And then we're talking about also the stair, egress, right? The exterior cladding. We're talking about electrical power is very important, right? Water, wastewater is very important. Without water, wastewater, we're going to have issues. So the current process is that there's a section in the functional recovery chapter, is that when we work, whoever's in charge of functional recovery needs to coordinate with a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, to ensure that those systems are properly designed so that they can be so you can achieve can support functional recovery of the building. I want to say, this question is really good. I see that from the functional recovery perspective, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, you play a very, very huge role in this. And also the civil engineer as well. And, one thing I have noticed that over the years from the post-earthquake damage is that some of the buildings supported on piles because the soil is poor, so there's going to be settlement. But when you bring all these utilities coming into the building, sometimes, you don't have the flexible joints at the pipeline to the building interface. So that's what becomes the weak point. You'll see your duct bank get sheared off. You'll see the pipeline get sheared off right there. So even if your water system, water district has already recovered their water, you still don't have water because at the interface, you don't have a good reliable connection. So a lot of those things need to be properly inspected. Those one of those things when we work with Penn's construction, we pay close attention to those flexible joints, between the building, at the interface, base isolation interface with the moat, the structure underneath it. Make sure we have enough clearance in place so that, if the external systems have been already recovered, we should be able to recover our system inside our building too. We have two 2 minutes left.
This is Patty Gardner. It'll take me longer to type this than just ask my question. So one thing, this all seems really good when you're talking about institutional clients like the state and school districts and things like this. But if you're in the private world, you're arm wrestling with your owners often. Is there any movement regarding like insurance companies kind of pressuring the system for, to try to get private owners to make this more of a priority?
I am so happy you asked, you say that. So the at the National Institute of Building Sciences, there's a council called the Multi-Hazard Mitigation Council. They have been focusing on insurance. They've been looking at the financing in all of those policies, and the former administration, deputy administrator for FEMA, actually now he's working. He's one of the members of the MMC, Multi-Hazard Mitigation Council. He's he's been very proactive of talking with Congress on this, and he's doing an awesome job. The explaining Congress is that this is so important. Resilience is also important. They see that building resilience into our buildings and infrastructure systems actually will help the insurance industry. There is synergy, and I don't have anything particular to point to at this point, but things are in the work right now, so it's coming. I hope that I have answered your question.
Are there any more questions? So we are just about at time. I think everyone can go ahead and take the rest of their Friday, but we really appreciate your presentation, and we look forward to seeing everyone on October 4th. If you have not registered for the in-person portion of the event, please do so by Tuesday of next week. We're going to send another email out, but we just want to make sure that we've got catering counts and everything ordered in preparation for that. So anyway, thanks again, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Kent.
Bye.
Thank you very much.